started at Mary Lee, I spent about 10 years in the public and private school settings here in the United States as an elementary teacher, and I use a lot of Reggio and play-based methods in my classroom. And I brought those skill sets here to Mary Lee and have been working here for the past 2+ years, helping train other teachers in the area to get their kids outdoors and trying to start more of a movement here in our region of Indiana, because it's still kind of catching momentum here. So we're kind of trying to get that train started, and it's been a really exciting thing to be a part of. Today specifically, we're going to be looking at how to easily and effectively connect social emotional learning in the outdoor setting. So I'll be using social emotional learning as a term. You may also hear me use SEL, just to kind of abbreviate that. We will spend some time reviewing what social emotional learning is, why it's important, how to practice it in outdoor education, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion time with our peers, which will hopefully be very insightful and help us get some more tools for our tool bag, which as teachers, you can never have enough of. Before we get started, I want to spend a little bit of time getting to know you better. So I'm going to put a link here in chat, and you'll need Google Drive to access this. So if you do not have a Google Drive, currently I can send out an email later on tomorrow and you'll be able to access the document, but here is the document going into chat. What I would like for you to do is there's a getting to know you page. If you could put your name, if you're willing to share your email, your location, and your organization, I'd really appreciate getting some of that information from you. We'll be using this Drive document. There's a few pages in there where we can post like questions. It's kind of just to help get us really help get to know each other and make sure we get all those questions answered, because I know I won't be able to cover everything in an hour. So I'll give you about 3 minutes to get in there and do that. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to chat and Katie and I will do our best to answer those. So I'll give you about 3 minutes. I see that there's some questions coming up. I'll post the link back into the chat for some of you who have joined us a little bit late. Again, if you don't have a Google Drive, you'll need a Gmail account to be able to access this. If you don't have one right now, that's okay. I'll be sending this link in an email later after the webinar so that you can access it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you have questions, Katie will be in the chat to answer those for you, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the presentation. So what is SEL? So what is social emotional learning? Well, this is a definition that I found online that I really liked, and that social emotional learning is a set of skills, it's knowledge, behaviors involved in the understanding and managing of emotions, setting positive goals, feeling empathy for others, and engaging in positive relationships and problem solving effectively. So I really like this because there's some words that really stood out to me, and some of those were problem solving effectively. I know here in the United States, something that we really struggle with in public schools is those problem solving skills. And social emotional learning really helps support those skill sets, because it really is a skill set for children to be able to collaborate and discuss and use their words in a way that comes with a positive and effective problem solving method. Managing emotions, so being able to self regulate, is a really important skill that needs to be taught. So, those were some reasons that I picked that definition and I really liked it. So how is social emotional learning relevant to child development? Well, today's schools are increasingly multicultural and multilingual, and students are coming from several diverse social and economic backgrounds. So educators and community agencies serve students with different motivations for engaging in learning, behaving positively, and performing academically. And so social emotional learning is a way to kind of put that foundation down for all learners to have a safe and positive learning environment. And social emotional learning really just encourages students to succeed in school, go on to have really fulfilling careers, and have a really fulfilling life. So, why are we here? Why are we here to talk about SEL? This has obviously become a very hot topic. A lot of us have been really interested in it. It's something that I've been seeing a lot more of in a lot of the webinars and conferences that I've been in. And some of those reasons that I think that we're seeing an uptick in trying to support social emotional learning in our students is because we are experiencing a lot of trauma in today's culture. Um, Here in the United States, we have a really high rate of COVID-19. And not only are loved ones of children getting sick, but we're also seeing a lot of financial struggles with families, just a lot of worry. Recently had elections here, and those are always a great opportunity for people to have tension and worry and concern. And children can sense that, and the adults and peers that they're with. And there's always family trauma. So things like abuse and homelessness and things like that. So children are experiencing a lot more of these issues than they ever have before. And we all know, based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that if children don't feel safe, if they don't have that social emotional connection or needs met, they're not going to be able to focus on or meet their other needs. So they also learn behaviors of coping that may hinder positive development, um, and being able to help them learn how to self-regulate, to be autonomous, and um, just really help them refine those skills, are going to be able to help set them up for success. And that's what we want to do as educators. So 5 ways that you can successfully uh, implement SEL in your classroom um, is creating a self-awareness. So research shows that self-awareness involves understanding your own emotions, your own personal goals and values. And I don't know about you, but I'm 30 something years old, and I don't always understand my own emotions. Sometimes it takes me time to reflect and think about, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? What's really causing me to feel this anxiety or this worry? And that's not something that just comes naturally. Those are skill sets that we are teaching our children, and it's a skill that needs to be developed. So this includes accurately assessing your own strengths, your limitations, having a positive mindset, and having a well-grounded sense of, optimism, looking at the world and being able to see that you can overcome obstacles, is actually a skill set that we need to be able to equip our children with. High levels of self-awareness require the ability to recognize your own thoughts, your feelings, and actions, and see how those 3 things are interconnected. Self-management also requires skills and attitudes, and those skills and attitudes help to facilitate the ability to regulate your own emotions and behaviors. So this includes the ability to delay gratification, manage stress, control impulses, and preserve through challenges. So an example of this I'll give is my own children. We still have a lot of Halloween candy at our house, and if I tell them no, it sometimes, especially with my younger children, it's hard for them to self-regulate. Like I'll find them coming back like 30 seconds later and being like, can I have a piece now? So being able to teach them those skills of self-regulation is really important, and SEL helps to do that. I think that these last three things are the most important components to me when it comes to SEL, and those three things are social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. So for social awareness, that involves the ability to understand, empathize, and feel compassion for those with different backgrounds and cultures. It also involves understanding social norms for behavior and recognizing family, school, and community resources and supports. So, this is really important. As educators, a lot of us come in contact with children who may not always have family support, they may not always have community support. So, as an educator, being able to have a well grounded classroom environment that is rooted deeply in social emotional learning will give students that sense of belonging, that sense of comfort that they need to be able to come to you and feel supported, which obviously is going to enhance their learning experience. Relationship skills help students establish and maintain healthy and rewarding relationships and to act in accordance with social norms. So these skills involve communicating clearly, listening actively, cooperating, resisting inappropriate social pressure, negotiating conflict constructively, and seeking help when needed. So if a child feels like they're supported, if they feel like they can come to a teacher and have a healthy relationship and feel like they're going to be respected and cared about, they're not going to want to give in to those inappropriate social pressures that they may be getting from peers. They're going to want to keep the relationships they have with their peers and their adults healthy and positive. So they're going to want to seek that positive attention instead of just either the negative attention or any attention that they can get. So SEL really supports those relationship skills as well, which goes into the responsible decision making. So responsible decision making involves learning how to make constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse settings. So this requires the ability to consider ethical standards, safety concerns, accurate behavioral norms for risky behaviors, the health and well-being of self and others, and to make realistic evaluations of various actions consequences. So this is something that has been a hot topic in the United States. I have a feeling that abroad, this forest school outdoor education is a lot more normal. It's been something you guys have really been doing for a long time. Risky play is still kind of a hot topic here in the United States. A lot of parents are still very uncomfortable with the idea of kids engaging in risky play. But SEL, social emotional learning, if they feel like they can trust the teacher and they have a good relationship, then they're going to be able to engage in a risky play in a safe way that really helps them have autonomy over their self regulation and help them to really learn how to make decisions that make them feel safe and make others feel safe. And that's really important because school is one of the primary places where students are going to learn these social and emotional skills. So I'm going to go on to the next slide here. So how can social emotional learning best support outdoor education? As we all know, because we're all here, right? The learning outdoors supports child development. We all know that. Children greatly benefit developmentally from being outdoors. Outdoor education and play support emotional, behavioral, intellectual development. And studies have shown that students who learn outdoors develop a better sense of self. They're more independent, they have more confidence, they have a higher level of creativity. They're better at making decisions and having better problem solving skills. They show more empathy towards their peers. They have higher functioning motor skills. They have more self discipline and they take more initiative. So those are all really great things. We also know that learning outdoors is healthy, especially in this COVID era. Learning outdoors helps kids stay active, it increases their physical, mental, and social health. And some studies have even shown that even after children leave forest education based learning, that they stay more active as adults, which is great because this helps reduce stress levels even in adults, which helps with mental health and just your overall sense of being as an adult. Learning outdoors helps develop a sense of place and civic attitudes and behaviors. So outdoor experiences help students increase their understanding of neat, natural and human communities, which leads to a sense of place. And we all want to have a sense of belonging. And I think that having students connect to nature is something that they can find and connect with on a deep level really helps them have this foundation of caring for the environment and caring for others. So this is where some of us may have like that deep foundation of sit spots. It's something that you can do with your students, and that really helps with their sense of place. And if you want more information on sit spots, you can check out our website, and I'll be putting that link in later, but we have some really great information about that too. Research also indicates that connectiveness to nature impacts sustainable behaviors. And when you feel like you're making a positive impact, that also connects to your overall happiness. And so that is an important part of having a healthy overall mental health as well. The study addressed a concern about, so the study that I was looking at was by Park and Wing, and they did this study in 2019. And the study addressed a concern about Korean youth well-beings and their high levels of suicide. And the study collected information about the youth participation in organized activities and found that higher levels of participation were positively linked to more happiness and joy. So in this study, they were looking at schools that were less formal and had more roles in outdoor education, and actually had more activities like after school for students to get involved in. And students that were a part of schools that were non-traditional actually had less of a suicide rate than their peers in more traditional school settings. And a lot of these activities included like adventure and environmental activities. And they link that to having a sense of responsibility and being able to have a sense of hope for the future. So that was something that was really important in that research, and I found that really interesting. So those are all some great components of SEL, but how do we go about implementing it, right? So we know that all these things are great things. We know that these are things that children need to feel supported. So how do we go about implementing them? So something that I was thinking about is how do we share what teachers are learning about individual students so that it can inform how teachers are interacting with these students. So I know from my days in a public education role, it can be really difficult when you have a class of 26 to 30 students to really get to know them on an individual level, especially when you have these commitments to do 90-minute reading blocks and 60-minute math blocks, and you have all these specials and things, and kids are getting pulled for different things. But that is a really foundational part of SEL. So getting to know each student on an individual basis, so you know what their individual needs are, is going to help you be able to connect with them academically on a better level. Because as students receive the SEL support that they need, they're going to be more ready to engage in that grade level content throughout the day, because you're going to have a really good relationship with them and they're going to feel supported. When students and faculty have trusting relationships and students are feeling more supported, they actually have found that students tend to spend more time in class, engaging in more rigorous grade level material. So some practical steps that you can do to really engage in SEL in your classroom. Really, the first foundational part is setting the tone for your students. So setting the tone helps with the overall classroom environment. And this goes to outdoor classrooms as well, because you're still a community, that's still your classroom, that's still your space. And so having those expectations of respect for nature and for one another really helps build up that sense of trust, that respect, and that positive learning environment. And as we all know, trust and respect are foundational in implementing social emotional learning components. So you need to make an effort to know each individual student and being able to meet their individual needs, because that's going to allow for a more productive learning environment, and it will help you identify how to best meet their needs. We also need to be able to teach students the art of persevering through challenges using techniques like verbal one-on-one encouragement, modeling how to chunk difficult tasks, and having a positive attitude and refocusing when becoming frustrated. And as we all know, the outdoor setting really gives way to a lot of these experiences for students. I wanted to show a lot of videos, but we don't have time. But I know a lot of you can probably think of your own experiences with kids when they have come up to maybe a big log that they want to like roll over to look for critters underneath. But one child can't do it, so they'll talk to each other and figure out a way to do it. So being able to problem solve is really important, and they're going to be able to do that best when they feel connected to each other, when they have that sense of trust, and having these SEL skills will help facilitate that really positive environment. Something else that teachers that are implementing social emotional learning skills in their classroom do is they ask questions. So it's not just students who should be asking questions, teachers should really be asking questions, and teachers should really be acting as the facilitator and really basing their questioning and their guidance off of what students are interested in. And modeling this as an educator is really important because students are looking at you and your behavior as the normal for this setting, this climate. So if you're able to ask them questions and you're relying on them to get answers, they're going to feel more trusting and coming to you and asking you questions and looking to you for answers. Something else that I'm sure that we all as educators know is that we have to plan to be flexible and be willing to readjust a plan or activity as needed, especially in the outdoor setting, because you get a lot of these, like, I call them aha moments, where like all of a sudden there's this toad in the middle of the classroom and like our focuses are shifting and things like that. So being able to not be distracted by that, but to take that as a really unique learning experience and being able to go with it will also show flexibility and adaptation to your students, which is a really important SEL skill as well. And then something that I know that I want to continue to work on as an educator is allowing time for pause and thinking. I'm somebody who really likes to have conversation flowing and having kids being active and getting into things, that sometimes I really need to be purposeful and stopping and allowing time to just be quiet and to think, and not that it's awkward, but for me sometimes I just want to step in and be like, okay, so what are we thinking about, before I'm actually giving them the appropriate amount of time to process. So that's something that's really important for SEL as well, because we're trying to get children to have those higher level thinking skills, to feel like they have autonomy over their learning. So if we're going to do that, we really need to give them time to process what they're thinking, what they're learning, and really kind of understand it on their own level before they can share back with us what that thinking process is. As students receive the social emotional learning support that they need, they're going to be ready to engage in that grade level content throughout the day. Students and faculty are going to have trusting relationships, which are going to allow students to feel more supported. Um, and they're going to be more willing to take on that rigorous activity or those higher level thinking skill activities. So what are some ways that we can get our organizations or even our peer teachers to be able to join us and support one another in doing this? And I think one of the easiest ways that we can do that is to set goals. So set specific SEL goals. So like what as an organization, which of these things as an organization do we really want to support? Are we wanting to support, like if we go back up to like, are we wanting to support relationship building? Are we wanting to support those problem solving skills. It could be like all of those things, but you need to decide like which ones are really important to you and really be purposeful in trying to implement those into your curriculum. Something else that you can do is have coaching sessions for your school, your teachers, and make sure that everybody feels supported and that they feel like they have the tools to be successful. So maybe you have a teacher who um, doesn't feel comfortable with certain aspects of, maybe she doesn't feel like she has the time to get to know her students like she needs to be able to support them. So being able to come alongside her or him and be willing to be in the classroom so that so they can make those connections is really important way of supporting your colleagues and being able to really promote SEL in your organization. So it can look like educating teachers on SEL. It could be adopting and implementing these specific standards that you want to put into your curriculum. It could be planning practices. So coming together as an organization and having a planning meeting about how are we going to do this as an organization, and using coaching to support classroom instruction. So maybe having somebody like one person in your building who's kind of the go-to person. Hey, I'm having problems with relationships in my classroom. There's some bullying going on. There's this or that going on, and having somebody that you can go to and do some brainstorming with is always a really important resource. So those are some things that you can do. So I'm going to stop because I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking, and I'm going to post a question into the chat. And that question is, now that you have a little background knowledge into social emotional learning, we've talked about some ways to implement it, and I gave you some ideas of what that could look like. I want you to think about some practices that you can place or implement into your outdoor classroom. So what's one specific way that you can foster SEL in your outdoor classrooms? Let me get this in chat so that you can see it. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes of quiet processing time, which, as I shared, is not always my strong suit. So I'm going to be practicing letting us have that quiet processing time for you to really think. Make sure you jot your ideas down and think about them. And then we're going to come back as a whole group and have some time to share those things and have some discussion. Okay. All right. So that question should be in chat. I'll give you some quiet processing time. If you need any help, please make sure you're typing that in a chat, and Katie or I will do our best to help you. All right, just so everybody knows, we have about 2 more minutes. And we're getting some really great ones on chat, so I'll make sure to point some of those out in a little bit. I'm also going to post that link to that Google Doc again into chat. A lot of these are really good, and I want to make sure we're capturing these. So if you would like to put your response into the document, I think that would be a really great collection of all of our ideas. So there's that. All right. If you're still working on your thought, that's totally fine. Go ahead and spend a little bit of time finishing that. I'm not sure if you have been looking at chat, but there's some really great ones in here. Ellie said class teachers being more involved in the outdoor learning process to develop positive relationships with their pupils. So that is a great example of one way that you can really foster SEL. Does anybody want to share out to the whole group? Unmute yourself and share your idea.
I see a lot of, hi everyone. Anyway, I see a lot of messages around relationship building. And I'm curious if those that want to or are comfortable want to talk about how they've already done that or how they're thinking about building relationships either with your students or your colleagues to create those connections.
Hi. I find that in my forest skills, sharing food around not always a campfire, but a camp circle helps build very strong relationships between the teacher and the children. My children are nursery, and I have to say it's one of their favourite parts.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Does anybody else do anything similar?
We have something called Crew, which is a morning meeting every morning, and the whole school does it within their own room. And we have a learning target for it, but it's often cooperative activities or whatever. And then we all discuss it at the end, we debrief and talk about it, but through the whole school, everybody's doing it at the same time. And then once a week, non-COVID years, we have whole school crew where everybody comes in the gym and they do that. And then we also call all of our teachers and staff our crew, and we have meetings. So it's just a sense of everybody belonging. We also have small, everything's crew, but we also have small crews where mini crews where we have kids of different grade levels that meet with you, and they meet with you the whole time they're in your school. So Like I would have 12 kids, some kindergartners, some first graders, some second graders, some third graders, but it's just one more adult that that child has a relationship with. So like if I see them in the gym or if I hear they're having problems, I can talk to them or whatever. So we just try to build a lot of relationships in our school.
I love that because I think that especially once you get out of the elementary age, you have middle school and high school or even college age students who have multiple teachers and they may connect with a teacher, a certain teacher better than another. So just the more hands on deck, the more responsible adults that we have that are supporting children, the better. So that's awesome. I love that. Is there anybody else who would like to share? I want to keep hearing these awesome things that you are doing.
We do lots of games in our forest school. Even so, I love the children to be valued and heard. So if they ask, can we play hide and seek? I make sure that I factor that in so that we can have time at the end to play that, or we just stop and play that game. Any of the games that the children suggest, I pretty much abandon my plan and go with that. So that's how I try and build relationships with my kids.
I love that. And do you feel like by doing that, you're really showing them that like their ideas are worthy and valuable just as much as yours are? Is that one of the reasons you're trying to do that and make sure you're making a point of giving them that time?
Yeah, I want to make sure that they're valued and they know that we're on an equal level at Forest School, so that their ideas and opinions are just as important as mine. We're learning collaboratively together rather than me being the one that imparts knowledge to them. We can learn from each other.
Love it. That's awesome. How about a few more? Does anybody else want to share?
Hi, I have something to contribute.
Okay.
Similar to what Ellie just said about respecting children's desires and interests and their ideas of how to spend time. I really enjoy fort building with children, as I'm sure you all do as well, but also allowing them to build, small forts that are not for everyone, that are maybe for one or two children, or that are not for adults, and respecting that they might have a special place that is just theirs, and asking what else do you need to make that your own, and continuing to work on something over time as well.
I love that.
I also noticed that several people talked about perseverance or encouraging their students. And we've dealt with that at Mary Lee. In some of our programming, we often find that when a child can't do something or struggles to do something, that they get really discouraged and, kind of talk down to themselves. And, I remember one instance, a child wanted to climb a tree and wasn't tall enough to get their foot to that first branch. And as an educator, I struggled with, well, how much do I lift him up and he will feel really good and have done, or done part of that? Or do I allow him to continue to try and try and figure out new ways to get up there and potentially have him feel discouraged? And I decided in the end that it would be better, I don't know if this was true, it would be better if he got to do it himself. And as he grew throughout his kindergarten year, by the end of the year, he was taller and he could get up there. And he was just so happy with that. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe I made the right choice. But I wonder if people have instances like that, or ways of kind of encouraging students when they can't do something quite yet, or like what language you use to help with that.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Sometimes I can't be heard on Zoom. We have a really big thing at the moment of growth mindset in our schools here in the UK. I don't know if you have this in America, but I notice in one of my schools that I work, children quite often say, I can't do that, I can't do that. And I just say, well, you can't do it yet, but if you keep trying, and I show them again how to do it, because I think that particular school, the children are just really used to be given everything on a plate. And I'm not sure if it was lockdown that did that, when children weren't in school, maybe, mums and dads just did things for them rather than actually helping them to find a way to do that themselves. Yeah, so that's sort of one thing that I tend to sort of really encourage, which I think some children find difficult. They sort of look at me and say, oh, okay, so she's not going to do this for us. She's going to make us keep trying with this palm drill. But yeah, that's what
And
I'm
I love that, but I mean, it probably works really well for you because you have a good relationship with your students, so they know it's not that, hey, she's not wanting to give me the time, she's not too busy, she just really wants me to succeed and have this like ownership of my self-worth.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like more time. I mean, that particular school, I have really short sessions, so I only have about 40 minutes with each group, which just really isn't long enough. But I try in my other school when I have much longer sessions to sort of really enable that. And I've decided in the shorter sessions to try not to do everything with every child each week. So maybe only half of them will use the palm drills, but that means I can actually spend more one-to-one time with a few children each week. And they've got quite good at understanding that over the last few months. Yes.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Hi, I find that the fire steel is another one that's great for this idea of persevering, because initially it's very few children, certainly at 3 and 4, who can actually get sparks. But because they're all in a similar situation, they accept that they don't ask me to do it for them. They'll ask me to show them and I'll model. And I just, you see so much perseverance, and then they all celebrate when a child makes a spark. So they're actually then become more focused on doing it for themselves. So yes, there's the odd child that says, I can't do it. And I remind them, like the lady said before, that you might not be able to do it now, but if you keep practicing and you're trying, you'll be able to do it. And that sense of satisfaction when they've done it themselves, a bit like climbing the tree and saying, okay, you might not be able to do it now, but look at how your friends are doing it, see if you can get any ideas, and not doing it for them is so important. And then trying to share with the parents who aren't there that moment when they succeed, it gets me every time. It's magical, and I've been doing it for a long time. But yes, it's pick the skills and pick the tools that are going to develop that persistence and that bounce back, that ability to keep going in the face of, of failing, really. But failure, and accepting that failure is okay, and then we'll keep going until we get it.
Exactly. I love that. And like, I know there's been some comments about wanting to look at that research. So the research is in that Google Drive document under resources. But the research shows that like children that have these experiences and are given the opportunity to struggle and overcome on their own carry those skills into adulthood. And as we all know, adulthood's not easy. So being able to have those skill sets to be able to adapt and be able to persevere is really important. And it really gives you a better quality of life and a better sense of self. So that's awesome that you're giving that to your students. That's a great gift. Anybody else?
I have something to say.
Okay.
I joined really late, so this might be completely off. I don't know for sure, but in our center, we allow the children to help each other, like specifically like when we're having community time we have a community leader, and like if the kids aren't be quiet enough to where we can continue community, or if someone is not focused and they wander off and they're doing something, the community leader goes and gets them and tells them what they need to do instead of a teacher. Sometimes, like the last lady was talking, when a child is having trouble doing something, she says, look at how your friend is doing it. And if there's a challenging task, a lot of times I'll ask another child to help that child do it instead of me doing it, which is something I struggle with because technically I'm a first year teacher because of COVID stealing like half a year from us. So it's really easy for me to step in and try to do everything for the kids. But since I discovered that little piece of, hey, their friend can teach them, it's really helped me as a teacher too.
I think it's really natural for everybody. I mean, we get into education because we love children, right? So I think that we all have this natural instinct to want to help and step in and have that nurture nature. But it is really important to make those cognitive discernments and making sure that they're getting those opportunities to build those relationships and rapport with their peers. And that can be really hard sometimes. But yes, thank you. That is a great example. You probably have time for one more if somebody else wants to share.
I can share.
Okay.
I was going to say, we often work one-to-one with children who are autistic and have kind of complex, kind of traumatic experiences. And what we sometimes do is we will show them how to do things, and then we'll be the ones who do them really badly, with the expectation that they'll then come in and go, but I can do that. So we'll do badly at games, we'll be really bad at throwing, or we can't get the fire lit quickly. And we find that children will very frequently come in and go, but I can do that. And they will persevere because they want to be better at it than you are. So we try and really step back and let them be the ones who kind of take over and show us what skills they've got.
I love that. If you don't mind me asking a little off topic, what grade levels do you have? Because you said the word fire in children, and that's something, at least here in the US, we still get a little bit of pushback from. But it's something that our organization's very interested in doing with children. So
certainly, I tend to work with primary age kids, but I know of nurseries and kindergartens in this area who are working with fires with children who are 2 years plus. And so they're maybe not necessarily lighting the fire, but they are with an adult, they have somebody with them, and they're getting the chance to use fire steels so that they understand what it's about.
mm-hmm. That's awesome. Love it. All right. Well, I'm sure we have lots more, and I do want to hear all of them. So please, please, please make sure you're getting your responses in that document so that we can have some kind of an artifact that we can all look at and see what everybody else is doing and get some ideas. Because I think that collaboration really makes for the best learning experiences. So please make sure you're doing that, because it's going to just benefit everybody that's participating today. So I hope that this information really inspires you, if you haven't been already, to be thinking more purposefully and strategically about how to plan and implement social emotional learning into your outdoor classroom so that you can better support your students. I'm going to take a few minutes here. We have about 3 minutes for any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you're more comfortable, you can type them into chat, and I'll try to give some attention there too.
I do want to just say too, before we wrap up, that as Krista was planning this, we were kind of mourning the fact that, we had to squeeze this into an hour, and we're all, on our computers once again. But I've just really enjoyed interacting with everybody and hearing everybody's perspective, especially those that are not in our little Midwest of the United States bubble. It's really great to hear from various parts of the world. And I would say if you are interested, I know that that document that Krista shared, and we'll get that out there too. If you see people that are in your area and you don't know them and you want to connect with them, I would really encourage that, especially for those of you, you know, in the same country, in the same region, just to kind of share those ideas with those that might have a better perspective on where you're coming from too. And yeah, I'm just sad that that we can only be an hour. You know, there's so much to talk about with this, but I would encourage you to create some sort of community if you can, with each other.
And if you are local, there is an opportunity for you to join a network that's here in Northeast Indiana. And let me see if I can get that link here. It's on our website, and this is also in the resource section of that Google Drive document. But just for ease, there it is. So if you're interested in joining this network, we talk about a wide range of different strategies for outdoor education. We talk about things like sit spot, appropriate winter apparel, how there's no bad weather, just bad clothing choices. So a lot of different things like that. We also have some resources on our webpage if you're just looking for some things to like just have some tools for your organization so you can get that too. All right, so we are coming to the end, and I'm just really thankful to have all of you here. It's been really neat. I know it's just really inspiring for me to hear other people that have the same mindset and the same passions, like sharing those passions and those brilliant ideas and being able to come together as a unit and discuss these things, I think is so important. Even if we are, you know, oceans apart, we still have friends globally that are trying to support children. And I think that's beautiful. And I'm so excited about that. I'm going to be putting a link here for you. It's if you need to get PGP or professional growth points for this webinar, you'll need to fill out this form. So I'm going to send it now in chat. And as those responses come in, I'll need that filled out tonight because I'll be filling out your certificates probably tomorrow and be trying to get them emailed back to you by the latest early next week. So if you don't have any other questions, feel free to just go ahead and fill out that form, and you can be done for the night. If you have any questions, Katie and I will stick around and we'll answer those questions the best we can. Otherwise, thank you so much for being a part of this, and feel free to use that document and stay in touch. You know, respond to people's questions and ideas, and hopefully we can all just build each other up in that way and support one another. So thank you, everybody.
Krista,
Yes.
I did have a question. It's
Okay.
it's related, but kind of maybe not. I have a friend who her daughter is homeschooled and she's just like kindergarten age. And since I'm an educator, she bounces stuff off of me all the time, you know, trying to ask me what I think of this and that and teaching her to read and all these things, which is what my preschool really doesn't focus on. We're more about hands-on and social skills kind of things. So I was thinking about this outdoor learning, and I was wondering if you have any tips or ideas that could be implemented with homeschool for things like that, especially the the social part of it in nature.
Okay. Well, I mean, so the unit is going to look a little bit different in a homeschool. You're talking about more of a family unit versus like peers and teachers. But I think that you can still definitely do that. I mean, these are skills that I implement with my own children. So, if we're outside, my kids have sit spots in their own journals that they use as just kind of a way of letting them have their own space in their own personal place at our farm. I think that also it's a little bit different as a parent and a teacher dynamic, but I think that almost in a way that's even a stronger connection to SEL, because as a parent, you're also, if you're really building that trust and that respect relationship with your children and showing them that like you value their opinions and their ideas, they're still going to take that outside of that family unit to other adults and other children. So I think that this is also really applicable. And in a homeschool setting, I think it's just a matter of making the decision to take some of your work outside, and knowing that you're not confined to like the kitchen table or wherever it is that you're doing your work. So, I mean, the easiest way I think personally to start that would be with like a sit spot, but then, maybe building a garden together, or maybe you're making some kind of craft where you're helping feed the birds to show that you're having some empathy for nature. So just thinking purposefully about activities and how you want to connect those with the kids and be very purposeful on how you're talking about it. I'm not sure if that helps. I hope it does. Katie, do you have any other ideas?
I'm sorry, I was doing technical things.
You're fine.
But I'm sure what you said sounds.
Does that help you, April?
I think so. And I have a few ideas already, like today we made bird feeders for the birds. Like, I think that might have been one of the things you said. And I wrote down what you said about building a garden. Honestly, I didn't know if sit spot was an option because it's one child, but you have to be silent during sit spot anyway. So
Yeah, I think that even with one child, sit spots. So I know like I am not very good about this, but when I am, like when I actually make myself, I have my own sit spot out in my yard. And when I get busy, like I mean, that's always the excuse I use is that I'm busy, right? And so I don't get out to it. And I can feel myself really missing that time. And when I'm being consistent and going out and like having that time to really think and really self-reflect, like I am a better human being. So I think that like even just with one child is and even as a teacher, like doing it with your kids, like it's gonna help just recenter you, refocus you. I mean, it really does a lot of good for your soul. So I would really encourage you to tell her to start there. And of course, like if you need any other resources, feel free to reach out and we can talk more on that kind of individual basis.
okay, I'll be at Mary Lee on Thursday. So
Okay, I will be here too. Are there any other questions?
I would say if anybody has issues accessing the professional growth points, just email me, and then I can let Krista know if you're having difficulties. I'm not really sure why the other one was not letting people access, but I'll try and figure that out.
And in chat, Wendy posted, do you do mindfulness sessions too? I feel that goes along with social emotional learning. And I totally agree. If you're not familiar with mindfulness, mindfulness is just being really aware of yourself and others and those connections, those interconnections between yourself and nature and others. And yeah, that goes right along with SEL. So I mean, I think that you can honestly like integrate the two of them very easily. So I think that's something to be really thoughtful of too. And if that's not something you've thought about, an easy Google search will give you some really neat ideas about how to really instill mindfulness in children. Are there any other questions? All right, well, if you're not comfortable on camera, I understand that. So feel free to send me an email if that's more comfortable, or you can even just drop your question in that Google Drive document. I'll try to respond to those as much as I can and get those questions answered. But again, just thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a wonderful evening.